Hello, my name is Aaron Dunn. I'm the composer of the Silmarillion Symphony, and welcome back if you've been following along. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Star of Hope, which is the 6th track off the Fall of Gondolin, which I'm going to pull some props up here. We have CDs, we have vinyls. You can order those at silmarillionSymphony.bandcamp.com, or if you know me in real life, just shoot me a text or an email. I may even deliver them personally. And of course, I can sign them as well. And again, silmarillionSymphony.bandcamp.com. Check the link in the description section below. So we're talking about the Star of Hope today, the 6th track. So there's a little bit of preamble I have to do on this in order for it to make sense. So by the time that Tour gets to the city, and settles in, because there's a rule with Gondolin. Once you get here, you can't get out. And the only folks that actually are allowed to do that in the entire book, as I can recall, is Tour's father, Hur, H-U-O-R, and Hurin, who is the father of Turin. He doesn't really enter the story all that much. He's referenced to very quickly toward the beginning of the Unfinished Tales depiction of the story. But Hurin and Hur spent a little bit of time in Gondolin, and that does inform a little bit of what goes on because, and I'll jump forward now in the book a little bit more to the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, where after this, or prior to this, Hur and Hurin had asked Turgon specifically, can we please go fight with our own people? There's still a battle to be won here, and we want to fight the orcs. You elves have forever if you want. We're men. We only have 90 years, or whatever the number is, maybe 100 years. And so we would like to go back and live with our people, and they swore an oath to the king. They kept their oath. If you read further on in the book, and again, these stories all branch off into all kinds of different things, and it's really cool how Tolkien did all of this, and especially with great respect to his son as well, Christopher, who edited all of this stuff to make it anything coherent is a monumental work. But Hurin and Hur, they go back to their people, they swear oaths to Turgon never to reveal anything about Gondolin, or they didn't even tell their own father, even though he kind of guessed what was up. And also, in the course of this discussion, as they're leaving Gondolin, Maeglin, the nephew of Turgon, basically threatens them and definitely gives them what for about this is way too special for you. You're man, we're elves, all this stuff. And Maeglin was not a nice guy, pretty twisted, and he comes into this a little bit further on, but all that to say, men had come to Gondolin before, and they were allowed to leave, and it was a very special circumstance. This doesn't happen again until the city falls. So Tur shows up. I would imagine Maeglin was not happy to see another child of men, especially one that might have even looked like his father. So Maeglin hated him. The way I've always sort of thought of this in my head is that there would have definitely been royal court drama that would have gone on between the two of them, and Tur would have come at quite a young age. He would have been in his 20s. And Maeglin didn't really have much use for him from the beginning. He spoke against his council and so forth, even though his council came from the Lord of Waters himself. So there's this, not necessarily a rivalry there, but there's a pretty intense jealousy from Maeglin towards Tur. And I'm assuming Tur, I'm thinking of like a teenage or young adult male, probably just wanted to knock his block off, but Tolkien doesn't really depict that. There's more coming on that later, though. Part of the problem between Maeglin and Tur was the fact that both Tuor and the king's daughter were drawn to one another, and they eventually do marry. Of course, Meglin had this weird incestuous thing toward Idril, which she perceived and was repulsed by, but Meglin couldn't let it go. So all that to say, they eventually get married because Turgon, being I would say a pretty wise king, not a perfect king, but a wise king, would have understood, okay, like, this is not a bad thing. This is almost messenger. This is probably a pretty good deal in terms of a marriage, I suppose. So he, of course, allows and blesses it, and I think he probably liked Tuor pretty well. And of course, that made Meglin sick to his stomach. Of course, a little later, they have a child, Tuor and Idril. That child's name is Erendil, and this is where the Star of Hope name comes from. It also comes, actually, sort of obliquely for me, from Tuor's father, who is now dead. But in giving up his life, Tuor tells Turgon, this is in a battle where Turgon actually went out, left Gondolin for a little bit to fight with his brothers and cousins to try and overthrow Morgoth. It didn't work. Hurin, who was Hur's brother, is taken captive by Morgoth, and Hur is killed with a venom arrow in his eye. But as Hur is getting ready to defend his homeland to the last, he tells Turgon, with the eyes of death, I tell you this. There's something to this effect. With the eyes, though I look on you with the eyes of death, from you and from me a new star shall rise. So he kind of prophesies this whole star thing, which is cool how this ends up working out. That would have stuck in Turgon's head, most definitely. And so that's where the name comes from. In terms of the music itself, I'd been messing with ideas around this particular harmonic structure for at least 10 years. And then making it all kind of work together as a story that would tell not only the joy of having a child or something like that, or the joy that would bring to a community or a city or whatever. In this case, this is a really big deal because eventually Erendil does save them all. And I'm looking forward to exploring that, which is consequently the next chapter of the book, the Voyage of Erendil and the War of Wrath. That's another discussion for another time. Some pretty epic things that need to be composed through for me. But yeah, so I'm trying to depict certain things like the joy of new life, but also a bit of a throwback to other musical themes that I'd looked at, which is, I believe it's the second music of Iluvatar, which talks a lot about the children of Iluvatar, the elves and men. And I'm using bits and pieces from my first album, actually, throughout the Star of Hope in order to depict some of these things and develop them. I've wanted to do that throughout my work, not just to mindlessly repeat things, but to take them and make them suit different contexts and modify them to those contexts. So in the theme in the Fall of Gondolin album, in the Star of Hope that I use, is a more developed and slightly more harmonically rich than the original that I wrote in 2014, 2015. So yeah, it's many things, but the main gist of it is to get to Erendil, because he will eventually encapsulate what it means to put things to right for the elves and men, and to also really stand as sort of an intercessory figure, I guess, if you want, where he goes eventually to the west to tell the Valar, hey, we need help, we're toast. I watched Gondolin go down when I was 7 years old, things like that. So there are a lot of really interesting redemptive themes, I think, in Erendil, and also in the story of the Fall of Gondolin, even though there's so much loss and so much grief. Anyhow, this video is now getting a little bit long, so I think I'm going to wrap it up there. But thank you very much for listening and watching. Again, check out the description section for more links on the work. Again, it's silmarillionSymphony.bandcamp.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.